Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the DeKalb City Council, April 8, 2019. Prior to the roll call this evening, I would like to remind anyone who would like to address any item not on the agenda or to one of the considerations, and we do have 3 of those on our Committee of the Whole meeting tonight, to simply fill out a speaker request form. They're in the back of the room. Give those to our City Clerk, Lynn Fazekas, and we'll get you on at the appropriate time. Having said that, if I could have the roll call, please. Clerk Fazekas.
Jacobson. Finucane.
Here.
Stupija.
Here.
Fagan.
Here.
Noreko.
Here.
Verbeek. Favor.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. I have received a notification from Alderman Verbeek that he is out of town and will not be at either of our Committee of the Whole or our regular City Council meeting. I have not heard from Alderman Jacobson, but I trust Dave will be coming in. Our next item on the agenda is our approval of the agenda. If there are no additions or deletions, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Noriko, seconded by Alderman Fagan, that we approve the agenda as printed. Roll call.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Noreko.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Finucane.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. I've received no speaker request forms for the 3 consideration items for our Committee of the Whole meeting, so I'm going to assume there are none. So we'll move right into item D on the agenda that you have in front of you, and those are considerations. Prior to turning over to Police Chief Gene Lowry, who I'm going to let move through all 3 of the considerations, I would like to take part in one of them, if I may, Gene. And that is a proclamation, National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 14 through 20, 2019. Whereas the week of April 14 through 20, 2019 has been designated as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week by the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials and recognized nationally by proclamation of the United States Congress. Therefore, I, Jerry Smith, Mayor of the City of DeKalb, do hereby declare local recognition and celebration of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week from April 14 through 20, 2019. In honor of the men and the women whose diligence and professionalism help keep the City of DeKalb and its first responders informed of emergencies and safe from harm. Gene, I'd like to present this to you, and then I'm going to have you go back to the podium if you would, and the rest of the program is yours. Thank you. So, speaking of the telecommunicators, the second item on our agenda tonight is recognition of the City of DeKalb telecommunicators. And Chief Lowry, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Administration, and community. On behalf of our telecommunicators, our unsung heroes of the Police Department, I want to take an opportunity to do some presentations, but make a few comments at the beginning of this. So to put this in the right framework, I think it's important to understand the role of a telecommunicator and why they're unsung heroes. And what I mean by that is you have to put yourself visually in the moment. Imagine yourself in a room cooped up with a couple other folks, maybe all 2 or 3 of you have things on your plate. And then all of a sudden, all chaos breaks out. And of all those 2 or 3 folks, they have multiple things to do. And why it's so important, how they build that foundation for what goes on in the minutes ahead and as the police get on scene, as they prepare to dispatch officers and get them dispatched out, is key. If they don't do their job, if they don't take the time to lay the foundation for that call, all things can go bad on that street. So I know that on behalf of the men and women of the police department who serve on the street, on behalf of myself and the entire department, I first want to say thank you for the jobs you do. National Telecommunications Week proclamation that was read by the mayor is important because we're taking the time as a country to honor you. And why it's important is you do such a great job. So without further ado, let me start off by welcoming a couple of new hires. The first one would be Brittany Mellinger. Thank you for stepping forward. Brittany is a full-time telecommunicator. She grew up in Freeport, Illinois, and graduated from Freeport High School. She received a Bachelor's of Science degree in psychology from Iowa State University. Maybe she can help me transition into another phase of my life soon. Brittany completed an internship at the Freeport Police Department, and prior to her employment here, worked as a human resource staffing agent in Dixon. Brittany lives in DeKalb with her husband, who is currently attending NIU's law program. Welcome aboard. The next new TC I'd like to introduce to you is TC Hayden Perkins. Hayden grew up here in DeKalb and graduated from DeKalb High School. He has an associate's degree from Kishwaukee College in arts and is working towards a bachelor's degree from NIU in political science that he is planning on completing this spring. Hayden completed an internship with the DeKalb Fire Department prior to his employment as a telecommunicator, and he lives in Cortland. Welcome aboard. What we're going to do now is I'm going to have Commander Leverton help with some presentations as this goes down the road. And we're going to start out with one of the commendations really characterized as Professionalism Under Pressure Award. Now, as I read these, there's so many things that are left out. And I got to be honest with you, I contemplated playing this call that telecommunicator Jeffrey Wells had to deal with. But then I thought it might do more damage to the audience than you really wanted to hear. So to understand why we're acknowledging this, sometimes those folks on the other end of the line are really helpful and good, and sometimes they're the diametric opposite. So this was one of those calls that we felt needed some acknowledgement. Please step forward. TC Jeffrey Wells has a long-standing reputation for being particularly patient and understanding with callers, even when they are upset or belligerent. In one particular case, Jeffrey remained calm under the extreme pressure of being berated by a caller who was trying to entice him into saying something unprofessional while implying that the department could be part of unethical actions being portrayed on the news media and other locations. Jeffrey spent over 10 minutes on the call attempting to assist the caller and explain our policies while remaining empathetic and considerate. Jeffrey is to be commended for his professionalism under pressure and for his calm demeanor. Thanks, Jeff. The next commendation is an act of kindness. A little bit of the background on that and the commendation itself. The Communications Center received a call from Kishwaukee Hospital advising a patient had completed treatment and was ready to be released. Hospital staff said that they had to dispose of the patient's clothing because of the unsanitary conditions that they found him in when he was brought in. The patient is a citizen whom our agency had multiple contacts with, and a familiarity with him due to his homeless status and mental health condition. Given the mid-January extreme cold and inclement weather, which I can say for this January might be an understatement, our staff were concerned about his well-being. In this situation, TC's Caitlin Armstrong and Adrian Ozaya responded in a way that few people would, but they certainly led the way. They put their own money together to purchase the individual new clothing. They then arranged to purchase the item and get them to the individual at the hospital. They put $65 together to get this individual enough clothing to get him back where he needed to be. An officer later picked the male up at the hospital and drove him back to his place of abode. Caitlin and Adrian are to be commended for their generosity and compassionate act of kindness. Thank you very much. I have to say that, you know, dispatchers are often the window to the world. And oftentimes what they say and do and how they handle themselves on the other end of that phone is what people perceive of the entire police department. So when situations like this arise and people see the acts of kindness that they have committed to or done, not only for TCs but the officers on the street, it's an amazing perception for them to have. And their whole perception of the police department itself is enhanced by their actions, so thank you. This next incident is a commendation in regard to a burglary to motor vehicle in the 800 block of North 12th Street that occurred back in July of 18. Telecommunicators Sean Woyna, Alyssa Jennings, and Garrett Williams worked together to coordinate a police response to teenage offenders reportedly entering unlocked vehicles. The TCs provided a timely location update, suspect descriptions, and ultimately all of this and the information they were putting out over the air led to the 2 juveniles being caught and arrested for burglarizing several motor vehicles as part of a neighborhood crime spree. The TCs are to be commended for their excellence in obtaining critical suspect information and coordinating that officer's response. And I have to say, for the numerous victims that were created in that case, you certainly had a job well done. Thank you very much. This is next commendation is in regard to an active structure fire on 808 Ridge back in January of last year. TC's Jennifer Barnett, Caitlin Armstrong, Hillary Engler, and Keller Kurth worked together to provide the coordinated response to an active fire in an apartment building that included smoke inhalation victims. After the initial dispatch, the communications center experienced a radio outage. This outage took our consoles out of service and forced the telecommunicators to work off their portable radios with limited functionality for both police and fire operations. Despite the limitations, TCs immediately used the mutual aid box alarm system to get their local fire agencies responding to assist. Officers assigned to start a building evacuation and had other utilities notified and on scene to anticipate the needs of fire command. They're to be commended for their excellent response and teamwork and in upgrading the fire response to include multiple fire units, ambulances, and police officers to assist in the safety of the citizens while working under the additional strains of a technology failure. Thank you very much. The next commendation is in regard to aggravated unlawful use of weapons in the 1000 block of West Hillcrest back in March. TC's Hillary Engler, Kelly Wilkins, Keller Clerk, and Brittany Hedden coordinated the critical response and developed information about a person who was armed with a gun and barricaded himself in a bedroom. The TCs worked together to contact the resident of the apartment, get management responding for officers, coordinate a fire response and staging area, and arrange evacuations for surrounding businesses and buildings. Ultimately, the offender was taken into custody and arrested without harm to anyone. They're to be commended for their timely, coordinated response and background investigation into the offender. Thank you very much. The next commendation is regard to a shots fired incident that occurred in the 900 block of West Hillcrest back in last July. Telecommunicators Heidi Clark, Jessica Green, Elizabeth Basham, and Garrett Williams worked together to receive information and provide response to multiple reports of shots being fired. Officers recovered shell casings at the scene, recovered a handgun, and several hundred rounds of ammunition. No one was hurt in the incident. The TCs are to be commended for their quick action in dispatching officers, identifying witnesses, and managing a large amount of incoming information. Thank you guys very much. Before I go over the last two, I just want to say that, again, the foundation for what you all do leading up to that officer arriving on scene makes a huge amount of difference. I've been in this business for 4 decades. I have never seen TCs do a better job. I've never seen you use your skills to help officers on the street in identifying offenders and resolving situations. It's unbelievable. Thank you very much. The last two are life-saving awards. The following TCs are being issued life-saving awards for their part in the response to the following medical situations. TC Hillary Engler is receiving a life-saving award for her actions during a 911 call back in January, where a 3-week-old infant was not breathing. Hillary received preliminary information and immediately sent police and EMS to respond. She then proceeded to give CPR instructions over the phone, keeping the caller calm and focused on CPR and counting compressions out loud, as well as checking breathing status until officers and paramedics arrived. Hillary is to be commended for her part in saving this child's life. Thank you very much. The next recipient for a life-saving award is Heidi Clark. Please step forward. Heidi is receiving a life-saving award for her actions during a 911 call back in July, where the caller could be heard crying but then faded away without speaking at all. Sensing something was terribly wrong, Heidi worked quickly to locate the phone through the GPS coordinates and directed officers and paramedics to the scene. A 16-year-old female was found unconscious from an apparent overdose and was successfully revived. Without the ability to recognize the need for an immediate response to a 911 open line and pinpointing a GPS location to send first responders, the 16-year-old would not have been located and saved. Heidi is to be commended for her part in saving this young lady's life. Thank you very much. Polyester in summer isn't working for me. If you would you please go and greet the council? Thank you. As they're walking out, let me say thanks again to you all for a tremendous job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Their job's pretty difficult. They're cooped up in a room trying to do it, so it's an amazing task.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So the last comment I wanted to make, and unfortunately the person that's a recipient of this isn't here, but kind of the reason she's not here is important to talk about too. This is a statewide Supervisor of the Year award that our telecommunications coordinator, Latoya Mars, received. I'll give you a little bit of the narrative. Behind the actions of all these examples of exemplary conduct is an exemplary supervisor, communications coordinator Latoya Mars. She received the statewide Supervisor of the Year award at the 911 conference in November, which is an outstanding accomplishment in the field of telecommunications. Latoya consistently goes above and beyond to provide for the training, organization, and operations of our communications center. She is known for always being there for her folks, including tonight, where she stayed back at the communications center to cover dispatch while her people were here receiving commendations. That's service over self for sure. In addition, Toya received her certification as a registered public safety leader in 2018, following a long, intensive course of study in management and supervision topics related to communications. This is a distinguished honor in the field of public safety and communications. We are extremely proud of her for all her accomplishments over the past year. That's it for our telecommunicators. And we decided to ask the council if they would allow us to bring this to you at a cow as close as we could be to National Telecommunicators Week. It means a lot to them. They're often behind those doors and never really get the accolades they deserve. But thank you for letting them come here tonight, and thank you for allowing us to do this.
No, thank you on behalf of the City Council and all the residents of the City of DeKalb, Gene. Our congratulations, our thanks to the telecommunicators, and we're just delighted that we're able to recognize them here just a few days prior to their official week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to move on to the last topic for me for this Committee of the Whole meeting.
Please do.
Thank you. Today, we're going to talk about, if I get the right information in front of me, maybe not. Can I get some notes here, Mayor?
Sure.
You get it?
We all know, Gene, that if you had mislaid your notes, you would have been able to do it right off your cuff, so, you know.
I was going to blame somebody for sabotaging me, but I'm not even going to go there.
Okay.
So let me do this. Let's work off our slide presentation because it's pretty short and sweet. This is our annual report. And from our annual report, I think we have some positives to look at. So this is our calendar year 2018 information for you, the council, for our city administration, for our community. And I'm going to pull this out a little bit so I can actually read this to you.
Sure.
To give you an idea of service demands, and this is just a nutshell of them. Police personnel answered over 115,000 calls in their dispatch center. So those folks that just walked out of here, think about those people, minimum 2 people in a room, hopefully 3, and sometimes 4, handling 115,000 10-digit phone calls annually, including over 22,000 911 calls. Unfortunately, that was an increase in the 911 calls from 2% over 2017's numbers. In addition to service demands, I think you got to look big picture, the amount of calls for service in total. The DeKalb Police Department in 2018 responded to over 55,000, almost 56,000 calls for service or at police events. Thank you. As a result of the hard work of the men and women of the DeKalb Police Department in regard to the category of crime, our community experienced a 12% decrease in our index crimes under the Part 1 Uniform Crime Reporting Act. That's huge. When we look at the consideration of 2017 and 2018 for Part 1 UCR crimes, we had a cumulative 22% drop in those crimes. Don't get me wrong, there are still crimes that we have challenges and we face. But this was a great year preceded by another good year. We look forward to that process continuing into 2019. Here's some factoids on crime in 2018. Weapon offenses declined by 19%. Let me repeat that. Weapon offenses declined by 19%. Gang-related incidents declined by 35%. Burglaries declined by 20%. Thefts declined by 17%. But here's the tick to the clock. Self-initiated activity by our police officers increased by 16%. That means the men and women of the police department are doing more with the resources they have to help have an impact in a positive way about our crime concerns and public safety in our community. For that, I believe they're owed a debt of thanks. Just as a slide in on that, a big part of it is the proactive policing initiatives we implement. Those proactive policing initiatives, problem-oriented policing, do put officers in the right spot at the right time to try and interdict crime before it gets out of control. Get ahead of the cycle. They did a great job. Proactive policing strategies that went into place over the last 12 months, the Safe Streets Initiative, a multidisciplinary approach to making neighborhoods safer, has proven to be a positive tool to make change. 3 prongs of that: proactive policing, intelligence-driven policing as one, enhanced parking regulations is another, and safe routes, which are still to come to final formulation. Compass, another great program. This is kind of out of the normal wheelhouse for the police. Deputy Chief Petrogallo and Commander Bob Riddell led the charge on that. Compass is changing outcomes by making parents accountable, successful, and supported. The last numbers I checked for last year, from the time the program kicked off until the end of December, we had like 59 participants in this program. Of the 59, there were 7 who reoffended. We recently had a meeting with parents and juveniles who have had some problems with their behavior come to the police station. By all descriptions, the parents were very apprehensive about coming into the land of the police, not knowing what was going to happen, maybe being frustrated with the system overall. But when they left, they were overwhelmed with the support. We had multiple social service agencies at the meeting who did some screenings and brought people the necessary resources at that meeting that started to make a difference. I think I can attest to it based on the anecdotal evidence. People were glad we implemented the program and glad that there were resources there that could help them in their homes. The Domestic Violence Lethality Assessment Program, disrupting the cycle of relationship-based violence. This is a challenge for us, I have to admit. Relationship violence in our community continues to go up year after year. Unfortunately, we see too much of it. And it's one of those situations where the police have only so much ability to respond and get the resources in. But under the leadership of Commander Steve Lekes, we have a situation where, in concert with Safe Passage, our domestic violence advocacy group, we've implemented the lethality assessment program, which is designed to get the right resources to the right people at the right time as soon as possible, helping victims make changes and decisions in their lives to change course in their lives. Last, another one, Project Hope. Another one led by Commander Lekes. Heroin opioid outreach, prevention, and education, getting addicts to treatment as soon as possible. It's noted here that in 2018, our overdose cases decreased by 42%. But we know it's not all about the HOPE program. That HOPE program was a factor in that. So we look at, in this program, instead of just an arrest or just looking at it from we can't arrest our way out of a situation response by the police, is having the police factor into part of the solution to give folks help as soon as possible. Because our officers often see the situation on the street way before others do. Ongoing challenges, service demands on the Northwest side really consumed about 51% of our police resources last year. That's a tough one. Because when we dedicate so many resources to one small area, other parts of the community take a back seat. We try to compensate for that. But the Northwest side is our main focus, and it is the most densely populated portion of our city. I mentioned it just before, domestic violence and the increase in cases involving strangulation are increasing at an alarming rate. So we have to continue to be vigilant and look at what we can do to change that paradigm. But when folks are in stress in our community, in communities across the country, unfortunately it happens. The other thing I think that's a factor, and I guess it's almost goes without saying, but poverty continues to impact our most vulnerable population. And it sets some things in sequence at times that often lead to tragic outcomes. So I know we're all working on that. We hope that and pray that that gets better in the future. Ongoing initiatives. We've had some really positive things that have happened over the last year. We did get the initial police and mental health collaboration grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get the second phase. That first phase set us up for some really positive things. We have the chance to get a grant-funded social worker in the police department to address behavioral health issues in our community. Not a guarantee yet, but it's actually looking very promising. But really the big takeaway from the grant itself was we learned a lot about ourselves. It starts to align the services for mental health providers and law enforcement to work in concert to try and address some of the behavioral health issues. You may remember back an annual report or two, or maybe three. It seems like we've mentioned it more than once. There have been times when the load from mental health or behavioral health issues are so high and the folks are back out on the street even after evaluation so quickly that we had to do something. And this is the framework for getting that done. The Mental Health Board, our social service providers have been excellent in this response as well. We're going through 911 PSAP, or Public Safety Answering Point Consolidation. That's the TC's job, their world, responding to 911 calls. So we expect by July of this year, the DeKalb County will go from 4 emergency operations centers to receive 911 calls to 2. Those 2 will be the sheriff's office and our police department. So we will be picking up more work, and we're ironing out the processes by which we do that. There's more to come on that. Ultimately, it will be a very good thing. Also, in regard to 911, Next Generation 911 is knocking at our door. We might be one of the few counties, when it's all said and done, that has an interoperable radio program, which is the last bullet point, with the sheriff's office, a consolidated network on a digital framework with all police agencies on it in the county, and Next Generation 911, and a reformation of our 911 dispatch centers, all in the same place. That's almost unheard of. And if you recall back to the studies after 9/11, the catastrophic events at the World Trade Towers, a big problem was things like interoperability, communicating between agencies. This addresses that. And again, the 911, or the DeKalb County Sheriff's Radio Project, that's another win-win for us. We go on to a new radio network by invitation from the sheriff and supported by the 911 board. And we have interoperable communications, and we decrease our city output for communications by about $100,000, maybe a little more in the years to follow. So a big jump for us. So this might be the fastest annual report in history. City manager, I hope this is good. City council. So I just got a couple pictures for you to see. Because what's more important about this, these numbers are good. We can still use some improvement. We still have some crimes that we have some challenges with. But it's very favorable. But here's where the rubber meets the road. The men and women who serve. So I just got a couple pictures for you. Because sometimes we get lost in the factoids and the data, but this is the reality. Those people that stood in front of you tonight, that's the reality. These folks are the reality. That's what a telecommunicator's workstation looks like. How would you like to have that many monitors to check? Those who serve. Those who serve. Support personnel, so many people behind the scene, it's hard to thank them all. I had to throw this one in because yours truly was in it, so I wanted to make sure I at least got a picture. Here's a picture that says it all, though. This is the picture that won the Department of Justice Photo Contest of the Year award. Actually, ours is for the month of April, so this is it. This tells you a lot about where the police department is in regard to its community. So do those other pictures. So you know, the numbers mean a lot, but the police relationship with the community means everything. And on behalf of the men and women of the police department, I want to say to you, to our administration and leadership, and to our community, thank you very much for being our partners. If you have any questions, I'll address your questions.
I think it was perhaps last fall, we put that picture up on the screen, if you recall, of Aaron Lockhart and somebody from the program over at University Village. And was that a Shaw Media picture? I think that, and also won a state award in the Illinois Press Association contest, if I recall.
I believe you're right on both accounts.
Yeah.
That was a Daily Chronicle
Yeah.
reporter who took
I
the
remember
picture.
having seen that, I think, initially, maybe in the Chronicle, and it just says it all, you know, in terms of that program. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, one, and then I'd like to turn it around, turn it over to other councilman, Jean. It was either last year's report or the 2016 report in which one of the huge spikes upward in terms of crime was burglaries and break-ins of cars. And I think a lot of that had to do with youth, I would say more youthful offenders. As you looked at crime during 2018, was there any significant change or dynamic as it related to some of our youth committing these crimes?
Yes, there was a couple of things. This was 2016, we had a huge spike in certain property crimes.
Yeah, right.
That was really attributed to, if you recall, we did, at the time of the annual report, we did a presentation about the 20 most prolific offenders. Not by name, by category. Some of them had reports or contacts with the police over 200 times. So yes, things have changed. Those offenders have grown up and apparently are being held a little bit more accountable for their crimes, so that's one. But the other one is, at the police station, at the police department, we try to forward look. We look at the problem in the rearview mirror that we had, but we're looking ahead to how we can address it. So the Compass program was key in response to that burglary and theft crime spree. Getting resources into families, having parents be more accountable, was one of the initiatives we brought to the table to say, what else could we do here again, because it's so difficult just to arrest your way out of problems.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to see if anybody else has any comments or questions to Chief Lowry for the 2018 annual report. Anyone?
I just want to
Alderman
say,
Stupidja.
thank you, Mayor.
Mhm.
I would just like to say, I have really been privileged for this very short time I'm up here to have been a part of a really great police department, which is DeKalb.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much.
And that's spoken from a woman who has been village president of Villa Park, and Joyce has stepped up in her short time here on the city council, has been a force and a very, very effective voice for the 3rd Ward, and we thank her for that. Thank you. Good comment. Alderman Fagan.
Yeah, I just want to second that also. I mean, we're very privileged to have our services of what we have in this town. Gene, I noticed on your report that you gave us, there's a lot of types of crimes and a lot of negatives, reductions. I know that, and we have talked about it, but and you have mentioned it here before, with other municipalities that have universities in the town, and I know we're very, very fortunate that you have a great working relationship with NIU. I can't say it enough. And hopefully other university towns have something close to it. But are they experiencing the same thing, or what's going on with that? Are we more fortunate, or I know it's a lot of hard work on your department, but
I think in general things have improved across university communities. I don't know that they've improved to the extent that ours have.
right.
The challenge is still there. There's a massive exodus of students across Illinois, which is just impacting communities by creating tremendous amounts of rental property surplus. And that has an impact on crime. I think overall, everybody is trying to work together and actually trying to force multiply with other agencies, getting resources in from other departments to not only operationally address crime, but resources from other services in the social service sector to get resources in to help address it in a different way, a less traditional way.
And to say one more thing, I mean, if we could get more cooperation from some of these landlords, we'd see a lot more of these numbers come down, wouldn't we?
Boy, I could get on a soapbox for you right now, but
Yeah.
I think if every landlord did their part in this community to do the right thing, keep their properties maintained, provide a lease, provide background checks that are allowable under the law, we would probably reduce crime by double digits again.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, Gene, thank you very much. Appreciate
you.
all your effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that concludes all of the considerations for our Committee of the Whole. There being no further business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Noriko, seconded by Alderman Jacobson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We are adjourned. City Council begins in 20 minutes at 6 p.m. Thank you.